Athenian trireme crews. In 480 BC, when the Persian Empire assembled over 600 warships to crush Greece, Athens bet everything on 170 ordinary citizens per ship who could row in perfect synchronization. These weren't slaves chained to oars like Hollywood suggests. They were free men who trained for months to execute the ancient world's most devastating naval tactic, ramming. A trireme could hit 9 knots in short bursts, and the bronze-reinforced prow punching through an enemy hull required every rower to stroke in exact unison, while the helmsman aimed for the killing blow. At the Battle of Salamis, the Greek commander Themistocles lured the massive Persian fleet into the narrow straits where their numbers became a disadvantage, and 380 Greek triremes destroyed over 200 Persian vessels, while losing only 40 of their own. The secret wasn't just the ships, it was the crews. Each trireme needed 3 levels of rowers working as one organism, the top tier called threnites, middle zygites, and bottom thalamites, all pulling in rhythm, while arrows and javelins flew overhead. These weren't professional soldiers. They were craftsmen, merchants, and farmers who spent months learning to move wooden oars through blue Aegean water, like synchronized insect legs, building the calluses and timing that would save Western civilization. The bronze rams gleaming underwater as shattered Persian hulls sank into the depths proved that discipline and training could defeat overwhelming numbers, a lesson that would echo through naval warfare for the next 2,500 years. The Jomsvikings. According to Norse sagas written 200 years after the events, the Jomsvikings were a legendary brotherhood of Viking mercenaries who operated from a fortress called Jomsborg somewhere on the Baltic coast, likely in modern Poland or Germany. Unlike typical Viking raiders who were farmers and traders part of the year, the Jomsvikings accepted only warriors aged 18 to 50 who swore to a brutal code: show no fear, never flee from an equal or lesser foe, avenge any brother's death, and never speak ill of fellow members. Break these rules, and you were expelled or executed. They fought as a unified fleet of 25 to 60 dragon-head longships, rather than independent raiders, commanded first by the legendary Palnatoke, and later by Sigvaldi, and their strict warrior code made them both feared and respected across Scandinavia. The most famous story is their last stand at the Battle of Svolder around the year 1000, where they faced King Olaf Tryggvason of Norway in a massive naval engagement. Even when defeat became certain, the Jomsvikings refused to surrender, fighting to the death on blood-soaked decks as chainmail glinted and shields lined the gunwales shattered under axe blows. Whether they actually existed, as described, or were partially legendary remains debated by historians. The sagas were written centuries later, and may have exaggerated their prowess. But the image of bearded warriors rowing in rhythm through northern waters, bound by oaths stronger than family, became one of the most enduring legends of Viking culture. Their fortress was never conclusively located, adding to the mystery of these warriors who supposedly valued honor and brotherhood above even their own lives. Spanish Infanteria de Marina. When Holy Roman Emperor Charles V created the Spanish Infanteria de Marina in 1537, he established what would become the world's oldest Marine Corps, still in existence today, nearly 500 years later. These weren't ship crews or sailors. They were specialized infantry trained specifically for naval boarding actions and amphibious assaults, perfecting the famous Spanish tercios tactics for the unique challenges of fighting on rolling ship decks. Their defining moment came at the Battle of Lepanto in 1571, the largest galley battle in history, where over 7,000 Infanteria soldiers aboard 200 galleys faced the Ottoman Empire's fleet in the Mediterranean. Steel breastplates reflecting the sun, long pikes angled to repel boarders, and muskets filling the air with smoke. The Infanteria helped inflict over 30,000 casualties on the Ottoman forces, while the Holy League lost about 7,500 men. Among those who fought that day was a young soldier named Miguel de Cervantes, who would later write Don Quixote. He lost the use of his left hand from wounds received during the battle, but considered it an honor to have served. For the next several centuries, these Marines served aboard treasure galleons defending Spanish gold from Caribbean pirates, conducted amphibious operations across the Americas, and maintained Spain's naval power during its golden age. The red Spanish crosses on white backgrounds became a feared sight for enemies, whether facing them in Mediterranean waters or on distant colonial shores. What makes the Infanteria remarkable isn't just their combat record, it's their continuous existence, through empires rising and falling, surviving Spain's decline as a superpower, civil wars, and political upheavals to still serve today as one of the most tradition-rich military units on Earth. British Royal Marines, formed in 1664 as the Duke of York and Albany's Maritime Regiment of Foot, what would become the Royal Marines spent over 350 years perfecting the concept of soldiers at sea and sailors on land. Every Royal Navy ship carried Marine detachments who served as shipboard infantry, expert marksmen in the fighting tops during naval battles, leaders of boarding parties, and enforcers of discipline among the crew. They earned the royal prefix in 1802 after distinguished service in the Napoleonic Wars, and their motto, per mare per terram, meaning by sea by land, perfectly captured their dual nature. During World War II, they formed specialized commando units that became the model for modern special operations forces worldwide. And it's these commandos who wear the famous Green Beret, awarded only after completing a brutal 32-week training course with over 40% of candidates failing. The final tests include a 9-mile speed march across rugged terrain in 90 minutes, while carrying 30 pounds of equipment, and a 30-miler that must be completed in 8 hours. Their most famous modern operation came during the Falklands War in 1982, when 3 Commando Brigade yomped, a British military term for long-distance loaded marching, across the wind-swept Falklands moorland to recapture the islands from Argentina. Whether conducting Arctic warfare training in Norway, where they're specialists in cold weather operations, launching from landing craft onto hostile beaches, or serving in ceremonial red tunics for state occasions, the Royal Marines maintained a reputation as one of the world's most versatile elite forces. The fact that they've continuously adapted from age of sailboarding actions to modern helicopter-borne assaults while maintaining centuries of tradition shows how an elite unit survives by evolution without losing its identity. Decima, Flotilla MAS. On December 19, 1941, 3 Italian 2-man manned torpedoes called maiali, which translates to pigs because of how they handled underwater, launched from the submarine ski ray, and penetrated Alexandria Harbor in Egypt to execute one of the most daring naval raids in history. The Decima Flotilla, MAS, with decima meaning 10th and MAS, standing for Motoscafo Armato Silurante, or Armed Torpedo Boat, had developed these human torpedoes as cutting-edge weapons, where 2 divers in wetsuits and rebreathers rode a slow-moving craft with a detachable warhead through dark Mediterranean waters toward their targets. That night, 6 Italian frogmen followed British ships entering the harbor to slip past defenses, swam beneath the hulls of battleships HMS Queen Elizabeth and HMS Valiant, clamped limpet mines to the steel, set timers, and attempted to escape. All 6 were captured, but the mines detonated on schedule, sinking both battleships in shallow water where they sat out of action for over 6 months, crippling British Mediterranean naval power in a single operation. The commander, Luigi Durand de la Penne, refused to reveal the mines' locations, even under interrogation, and the British later awarded him a medal for gallantry, despite being an enemy combatant. Using technology that wouldn't become common for another decade, diving equipment and underwater breathing apparatus that most navies hadn't even conceptualized, these Italian swimmers in black wetsuits with rebreather bubbles trailing behind them disabled 237,000 tons of Allied shipping through skill and audacity rather than overwhelming force. The Decima MAS proved that a handful of well-trained specialists with innovative equipment could achieve what entire fleets could not. Though it's worth noting that after Italy's 1943 armistice, the unit split and some members joined fascist forces in northern Italy, complicating their legacy. U.S. Navy underwater demolition teams. When Allied commanders planned amphibious invasions across the Pacific, they faced a brutal problem. Beaches were mined and blocked with obstacles designed to rip landing craft apart, and somebody had to clear them before the main assault. The solution was underwater demolition teams, formed in 1943 and known as the Naked Warriors because they swam to enemy shores in broad daylight, wearing nothing but swim trunks, dive masks, and sometimes fins, their bodies painted to reduce visibility. At D-Day Normandy in 1944, UDT swimmers cleared 50-yard gaps through German beach obstacles as machine gun fire kicked up spray around them. And at Iwo Jima in 1945, they surveyed the beaches while Japanese defenders shot at them from fortified positions just yards away. The job required swimming 2 miles to the beach, mapping obstacles, and measuring depth gradients while under fire. Then swimming 2 miles back, all in 50 to 60 degree Fahrenheit water, without wetsuits because the technology didn't exist yet. They used explosives to blow paths through steel obstacles jutting from the water, clearing the way for landing craft loaded with Marines who would storm ashore minutes later. Training included the first version of Hell Week, established in 1944, 5.5 days of continuous physical evolution designed to break anyone who wasn't mentally capable of swimming toward enemy guns. The casualty rates were devastating, with some operations seeing losses around 37%. But the coral reefs and steel barriers they destroyed saved countless lives in the landing forces. These teams eventually merged into SEAL teams in the early 1980s, but their legacy lives on in modern naval special warfare training and tactics. The image of nearly naked men in churning Pacific surf with explosions erupting around them remains one of the most striking examples of courage in military history. Special Boat Service. While their sister unit, the SAS, gets most of the headlines, the British Special Boat Service has operated since 1940 as what they call the Quiet Professionals, conducting maritime counterterrorism, shipboarding, and underwater insertion operations with minimal publicity. Formed originally as the Special Boat Section for small boat raids in the Mediterranean during World War II, the SBS evolved into one of the most secretive special operations forces on Earth. Their faces are blurred in every photograph, and their names remain classified, even decades after retirement. They specialize in maritime environments where the SAS cannot operate as effectively, using Black Zodiac boats to approach targets at night across gray North Sea waters, diving for underwater approaches, or conducting riverine operations in deserts and jungles. During the Falklands War, SBS teams conducted reconnaissance missions on the islands before the main British landing, and in Sierra Leone in 2000, they helped rescue hostages held by the rebel group called the West Side Boys. Selection for the SBS lasts 6 months, and reportedly has over a 90% failure rate, requiring not just physical excellence, but specialized qualifications in diving, parachuting, kayaking, and both Arctic and jungle warfare. With an estimated total strength of only 200 to 250 personnel, though exact numbers remain highly classified, the SBS maintains a capability set that rivals much larger American units. They supported the SAS during the 1980 Iranian embassy siege in London, conducted extensive operations in Iraq and Afghanistan that remain largely unknown to the public, and continue to operate in conflicts around the world without acknowledgement. The rivalry and cooperation between SBS and the Royal Marines is sometimes tense as both compete for certain missions, but the SBS's focus on truly clandestine maritime operations gives them a unique niche. Their motto is not by strength, by guile, and that philosophy of brain over brawn, stealth over firepower, has kept them effective for over 80 years. U.S. Navy SEALs. On January 1st, 1962, President Kennedy established the sea, air, and land teams, and the Navy SEALs quickly became the most famous special operations force on Earth, despite their relatively small size. Getting into the SEALs means surviving basic underwater demolition, or SEAL training, known as BUDS, which has a 70 to 85% attrition rate depending on the class, with the infamous Hell Week serving as the ultimate filter. 5.5 days, 4 hours of total sleep, continuous physical evolution, including log PT with 200-pound logs, surf torture in 60-degree water, and relentless mental pressure designed to make candidates quit. Those who make it through spend 18 months in additional training before earning the Trident Pin. During the Vietnam War, SEALs conducted over 40,000 patrols in the Mekong Delta, specializing in riverine warfare and counterinsurgency operations, including controversial participation in the Phoenix program. The SEALs are organized into 8 teams. Teams 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 10, operating in 12 to 16 man platoons that can insert via parachute from aircraft, submarine launch, boats, helicopters, or overland infiltration. They've deployed to every major American conflict since Vietnam, including Grenada, Panama, Iraq, and Afghanistan, conducting direct action raids, special reconnaissance, and counter-terrorism operations. Students covered in sand during BUDS training on Coronado Beach, boats navigating jungle rivers with weapons ready, night vision goggles glowing green during raids. These images have made SEALs iconic in popular culture, sometimes to the frustration of other special operations forces who operate with less publicity. The reality behind the Hollywood image is thousands of hours of training for missions that last minutes, physical standards that eliminate the vast majority of candidates, and a culture that demands both individual excellence and team cohesion. While their sister unit DevGru gets the highest profile missions, regular SEAL teams form the backbone of naval special warfare, deploying worldwide on rotations that can last 6 to 9 months. Shayetet 13, Israel's naval commandos, known as Shayetet 13 or Flotilla 13, face a unique challenge. They're the smallest country with a Tier 1 naval special operations capability, operating in a constant threat environment that gives them more combat experience per operator than almost any comparable unit. Formed in 1949, just 1 year after Israeli independence, and modeled on the British SBS, Shayetet 13 conducts more counterterrorism operations than their size would suggest possible, regularly intercepting weapons shipments bound for Gaza and Lebanon. The most famous interdiction was the Karine A in 2002, where they seized 50 tons of weapons, including rockets and explosives, aboard a ship in the Red Sea. Selection lasts 20 months, the longest in the Israeli military, with an 85 to 90% attrition rate as candidates endure 12-mile ocean swims, extensive diving qualifications, counter-terrorism boarding training, and Arabic language instruction for certain roles. Operators' faces are blurred in all photographs, and their names remain classified, operating in absolute secrecy despite living in a country where military service is mandatory and most citizens understand military culture. They participated in Operation Spring of Youth in 1973, raiding Beirut to kill PLO leaders, provided support for the famous Entebbe raid in 1976, and continue operations that usually emerge in public only years after they occur. The 2010 Gaza Flotilla raid, where Shayetet 13 boarded ships attempting to break the Gaza blockade, became internationally controversial with disputed accounts of what happened, showing how even elite units can face political complications from necessary operations. Operating from submarines, Black Zodiac boats across Mediterranean blue waters, or swimming beneath Lebanese coastline defenses, these commandos maintain Israel's ability to project power at sea despite having no strategic depth and enemies on multiple borders. Their constant operational tempo in real combat situations, not training exercises, gives them experience that's hard to match, though exact numbers of operations remain classified. EEVGRU SEAL Team 6. When Operation Eagle Claw, the 1980 attempt to rescue American hostages in Iran, failed catastrophically, the Navy realized it needed a dedicated counterterrorism unit that could match the Army's Delta Force. Commander Richard Marcinko founded SEAL Team 6 that same year, deliberately choosing the name to confuse Soviet intelligence since only 2 SEAL teams existed at the time, making them think there were at least 6. The unit received Tier 1 status, meaning unlimited funding and first pick of candidates from the already elite SEAL teams, requiring a minimum 5 years as a SEAL before even being invited to a 6-month selection course with over a 50% failure rate. In 1987, the unit officially became the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, or DevGRU. But SEAL Team 6 stuck in public consciousness and remains the popular name. Their most famous operation came on May 2, 2011, when 23 DevGRU operators aboard 2 stealth helicopters flew into Abbottabad, Pakistan, for Operation Neptune Spear. One helicopter crashed in the compound, but the team proceeded with the mission, clearing buildings room by room until they found and killed Osama bin Laden in a 40-minute raid with 0 American casualties. They destroyed the crashed stealth helicopter to protect classified technology before exfiltrating with bin Laden's body. 3 years earlier, in 2009, DevGRU snipers rescued Captain Phillips from Somali pirates by taking 3 simultaneous shots from a moving ship to kill all 3 hostage takers instantly, and in 2012, they parachuted into Somalia at night to rescue aid worker Jessica Buchanan. With an estimated strength of 200 to 300 operators, exact numbers are classified. DevGRU trains exclusively for counterterrorism and hostage rescue, rather than the broader mission set of regular SEAL teams. The destroyed helicopter in bin Laden's compound, night vision footage of desert raids, tactical gear that gets copied by military enthusiasts worldwide. These images have made DevGRU the most publicly known secret unit in American military history, despite their official classification and the fact that their operations manual remains locked away. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.